By the summer of 1943, at Camp Crossville, Tennessee, a profound cultural shock began. The German soldier, hardened by 2 years of brutal combat in North Africa and sustained only by hard biscuits and ersatz coffee, was captivated by the sight of brown liquid fizzing in a glass bottle. This sweet, carbonated beverage, known as Coca-Cola, represented an impossibility made tangible. Purchased for 5 cents from the camp canteen. The same price. Guards emphasized that American children paid with their pocket money. This small transaction symbolized a vast economic gulf. Across the American landscape that summer, 371,683 German prisoners of war were forced to confront a reality that fundamentally shattered the tenets of Nazi propaganda concerning American weakness and decadence. They found themselves within a nation where ice cream was a routine dessert, where soft drinks were everyday beverages, and where candy bars were so ubiquitous that guards often distributed them casually. These simple confections, treats largely unknown to most German children, became the silent, systemic demolisher of National Socialist ideology, proving far more effective than any counter-propaganda effort. The undeniable mathematics of industrial abundance was being written in sugar, carbonation, chocolate, and cream. This visible, effortless capacity revealed German deprivation not as a noble sacrifice for fatherland, but as needless suffering imposed by an overstretched regime. The initial amazement at American foodstuffs rapidly evolved into a complete psychological transformation. This confrontation was rooted in the desert's end. The surrender of the Afrika Korps in Tunisia during May 1943 brought approximately 250,000 German and Italian soldiers into Allied captivity. These veteran desert fighters, who had relentlessly driven the British back toward Egypt under command of Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, anticipated harsh treatment, having been prepared by Nazi doctrine for American brutality and starvation. Instead, within mere hours of their capture, they encountered the pragmatic reality of the American military, the K-rations. These field rations, the contents of the standard K-rations, often subject to complaint among Allied soldiers, contained items that German troops considered genuine treasures: crackers, processed cheese, concentrated fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. For German soldiers who had subsisted on increasingly minimal rations for months, these emergency provisions were nothing short of a feast. The systematic contrast began immediately. Military records detail that at the processing camps established in North Africa, the U.S. Army provided meals featuring fresh eggs, milk, and pancakes drenched in syrup, staples that had vanished entirely from the German military diet years prior. The systematic feeding of the enemy with such superior nourishment started instantly, though the full psychological impact of this overwhelming abundance would only be gauged much later. As one German officer later testified to the International Red Cross, "We expected to be starved as prisoners. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own army had." This fundamental confusion regarding American industrial capacity and resources marked the beginning of their re-education. That education intensified aboard the Liberty ships carrying the prisoners of war, PWs, across the Atlantic in the summer of 1943. These standardized vessels, mass-produced at an unprecedented scale, one completed every 42 hours at peak production, transported up to 30,000 prisoners monthly to the United States. Naval manifests confirmed that prisoner rations aboard these transatlantic crossings consistently matched or even exceeded standard crew provisions, approximating 3,500 calories daily. The meals included fresh bread, meat, vegetables, and coffee served with both sugar and milk. Crucially, the advanced refrigeration systems, standard equipment on American ships, ensured that fresh food was maintained throughout the 2-week voyage. Most remarkably, documented accounts confirm the serving of ice cream on multiple occasions during these Atlantic passages. The ship's log for the USS General M.B. Stewart from July 1943 specifically records serving ice cream to prisoners on July 4th, utilizing the ship's ice cream maker, which produced batches of 10 gallons. For men who had not tasted ice cream since the early days of the conflict, this frozen dessert, served in the desolate expanse of the mid-Atlantic, represented the starkest possible illustration of American logistical supremacy. Upon disembarking at crucial American port cities, such as Norfolk and Newport News, German prisoners of war encountered reality that fundamentally contradicted the scarcity narrative relentlessly promoted by Nazi propaganda. The sheer scale of American industrial capacity was immediately palpable. The sprawling Norfolk Naval Base, encompassing 4,300 acres of extensive waterfront facilities, processed more daily cargo volume than the major ports of the Reich managed in an entire week. At the port exchanges, intended for American dock workers, the prisoners' glimpsed shelves overflow with confectionaries, mass-produced candy bars from industrial giants like Hershey, Mars, and Nestle. Military procurement records from 1943 confirm that these exchanges stocked dozens of candy varieties, priced uniformly across the nation at 5 cents for most bars. The subsequent journey inland by rail served as further, involuntary instruction in American abundance, rather than harsh, overcrowded cattle cars used for military transport throughout Europe. German prisoners traveled in standard passenger coaches, where dining cars offered full, hot meals. Documented menus from July 1943 detail offerings of fried chicken, fresh vegetables, pie, and coffee, a service the POWs quickly realized was not special accommodation, but merely typical American rail standard. The sprawling network of prisoner camps established across America provided conditions that routinely exceeded the requirements stipulated by the Geneva Convention. Facilities like Camp Crossville, Tennessee, a representative example of the larger installations, included amenities such as electric lighting, hot running water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. Yet, it was the camp exchanges, the post-exchange PX stores, that delivered the most profound cultural shock. Army Quartermaster records detail that these exchanges stocked a dizzying array of consumer goods, multiple soft drink brands, including Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, and RC Cola, various candy bars and confections, refrigerated ice cream where facilities permitted, cigarettes and tobacco, fresh fruit, snacks, and 3.2% alcohol content beer. Prisoners performing labor earned 80 cents daily, a rate later raised to $1. Given a candy bar or a bottle of Coca-Cola cost just 5 cents, a single day's wage could purchase 16 items, an abundance unimaginable in wartime Germany. Coca-Cola emerged as the undeniable symbol of American industrial democracy, a readily available commodity contrasting sharply with the scarcity that defined life in the Axis powers, where such products, if available at all, required special connections. The Coca-Cola Company's wartime production reached monumental levels, chronicled by company records showing an astonishing 5 billion bottles produced in 1943 alone. This colossal output was sustained by a military contract guaranteeing every American serviceman worldwide access to the beverage for a fixed price of 5 cents, a commitment requiring unprecedented logistical coordination. German prisoners of war, many of whom had never encountered the soft drink before their capture, were astounded by its sheer ubiquity across the United States. They observed that every camp received regular deliveries, and work details witnessed vending machines and coolers installed everywhere, at gas stations, factories, and schools. Americans of all ages and classes drank it casually, often discarding half-empty bottles without a second thought. For the technically minded German engineers, the standardization was perhaps the most shocking element. Coca-Cola tasted identically, whether consumed in Maine or Texas, a feat of quality control and mass production that demonstrably exceeded the capabilities of German industry. The logistics, centered on syrup concentrate manufactured solely in Atlanta and distributed nationally to bottling plants, represented an industrial coordination that directly challenged Nazi assumptions regarding American chaos. Archival records from a Coca-Cola company confirm the scale of this operation, noting that many prison camps received weekly shipments of 200 to 300 cases, each containing 24 bottles. In the summer of 1943, Camp Hearn, Texas alone consumed approximately 7,000 bottles every week. Beyond the ubiquitous soft drink, the constant availability of ice cream in American prison camps seemed an impossible luxury to Germans who had not seen the product since before the war began. Yet, Army records confirm that this frozen treat was regularly served in camps possessing adequate refrigeration during the summer months. The military deemed ice cream essential for maintaining morale, so critical, in fact, that specialized ice cream ships were commissioned and built specifically to supply the vast Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the July 4th, 1943, celebration at American prisoner of war camps featured a staggering display of domestic abundance. Ice cream, often produced right on site. Captive German soldiers watched the laborious process as hand-cranked freezers churn out gallons of the frozen confection, utilizing copious amounts of ice, salt, cream, sugar, and various flavorings. This casual deployment of desperately scarce wartime resources, ice in the height of summer, high-fat cream, and sugar dedicated solely to entertainment food, serve as a potent, bewildering demonstration of American material priorities that the Germans simply could not fathom. By 1944, this domestic luxury had become streamlined. Many camps had acquired electric ice cream makers. The sheer variety available to the prisoners, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and even butter pecan, frequently exceeded the selection offered by German ice cream parlors even before the war began. Prisoners could readily purchase individual treats, such as ice cream bars or ice cream sandwiches, typically priced at just 10 cents, or choose from various flavored cups. Army procurement records confirm this demand, showing that larger installations routinely order between 50 and 100 gallons of ice cream weekly throughout the summer months. The frequency varied by location and season, but prisoners regularly enjoyed this frozen luxury that had entirely vanished from German civilian life. The consumption of sugar within American prison camps delivered an especially powerful and tangible cultural shock. In the Third Reich, sugar was subject to stringent rationing, limiting civilians to a meager 280 grams monthly, often unavailable even then. Conversely, in the American camps, refined sugar sat freely accessible in large bowls on mess hall tables for unlimited use. Quartermaster records spanning 1943 to 1945 document camps receiving 100-pound bags of refined sugar on a weekly basis. Camp bakeries use the ingredient liberally, ensuring that cakes, cookies, and pies appeared regularly on the menus, while mess halls sweetened coffee, tea cereals, and desserts without any restriction whatsoever. One documented incident from Camp Aliceville, Alabama, in August 1943, encapsulates this profound contrast. Humid weather caused several hundred pounds of the stored sugar to harden, rendering it difficult for immediate use. Rather than employing steaming techniques to recover and utilize the valuable commodity, as German logistics would have strictly mandated, the kitchen staff simply discarded the spoiled bulk and ordered immediate replacement supplies. German prisoners assigned to kitchen duties were reportedly deeply distressed by this casual, almost negligent waste of a substance they viewed as precious. The sheer volume of wartime consumption offers a stark display of American industrial and democratic abundance. Despite the constraints of the global conflict, major manufacturers like Hershey, Mars, and Nestle maintained production levels generating millions of chocolate bars every month. The logistical demand was staggering. The United States military alone procured 380 million pounds of chocolate products during the war years. Even within the confines of prison camp exchanges, prisoners of war encountered multiple varieties of chocolate. Standard Hershey bars, D-rations, emergency chocolate, and various candy bars were priced affordably, typically between 5 and 10 cents. Captives quickly noted the casual American preference for one brand over another, a luxury of choice unimaginable in their homeland. Monthly distributions by the American Red Cross further underscored this abundance. Records confirm standard parcels contained not only chocolate or candy bars, but also items far exceeding the basic rations of German civilians. 2 instant coffees, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, and soap. The autumn of 1943 introduced German prisoners to an unparalleled demonstration of American holiday abundance, the national coordination surrounding Thanksgiving. This purely American celebration revealed a logistical capacity that dwarfed German organizational efforts. Army records confirm that every prison camp served a traditional holiday dinner: roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. The capacity to provide this exact, complex meal to approximately 425,000 prisoners of war, mirroring the menu served to millions of American servicemen worldwide, became a powerful, silent display of industrial organization. Crucially, the fact that German captives received the identical meal as American soldiers underscored commitment to equality of treatment, a policy that stood in direct contradiction to the Nazi racial hierarchy. This unexpected generosity continued into Christmas 1943, when American civilians, spurred by church groups, civic organizations, and individuals, began sending personal packages directly to the German prisoners of war. The remarkable display of American civilian charity extended even to enemy combatants, a phenomenon spearheaded by organizations such as the American Friends Service Committee. This group alone oversaw the distribution of 50,000 Christmas packages to Axis prisoners, parcels typically containing homemade comforts, cookies, candy, toiletries, games, books, cigarettes, and essential writing materials. This institutionalized benevolence was often mirrored by local compassion. Communities near the camps provided additional, personalized support. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townsfolk delivered homemade treats directly to the German captives at Camp Tonkawa, and church groups in Hearne, Texas, ensured that holiday cookies and candy reached Camp Hearne. This sustained kindness toward men whose nations were actively fighting American sons fundamentally challenged the underlying tenets of Nazi ideology, demonstrating a national strength rooted firmly in mercy rather than vengeance. As the domestic labor shortage intensified, German prisoners of war were increasingly utilized outside the confines of camps. By 1944, approximately 100,000 prisoners were engaged in agriculture and food processing, providing them with an intimate, often staggering view of American abundance. In Michigan, prisoners picked cherries destined not for sustenance, but for the decorative market, those bright garnishes used in maraschino production to top ice cream sundaes. The sheer volume was astounding. Single orchards produced tons of fruit simply for aesthetic purposes. At canneries, the prisoners observed quality control standards that rejected perfectly edible food for minor imperfections. Del Monte records from 1944 confirmed that nearly 15% of fruit was rejected for canning due to size irregularities or minor blemishes, subsequently being diverted to animal feed. Furthermore, the sugar beet processing operations in Colorado and Nebraska revealed a level of agricultural mechanization and scale that far exceeded German achievement. Prisoners learned that American sugar production, encompassing both cane and beets, reached approximately 7 million tons, a scale where single farms produced more sugar beets than entire German regions combined. German prisoners of war, often assigned labor details near civilian schools, became unwitting witnesses to the early manifestation of organized American social welfare. They observed school systems operating precursor programs to the 1946 National School Lunch Act, providing children with daily hot lunches featuring milk, vegetables, and crucial protein. The daily provision of fresh milk to thousands of schools across the nation particularly impressed German observers, demonstrating an organizational and logistical capacity that the Third Reich struggled to achieve even for its frontline military supplies. This sense of effortless abundance was further compounded by the practice of some school cafeterias offering ice cream for additional purchase, a profound, almost unbelievable contrast to the severe food shortages facing children in Germany. When minimum security prisoners were permitted to eat under guard at local American diners, they encountered a unique, visible form of democratic abundance. These small, ubiquitous restaurants offered menus comparable in quality to the elite establishments of Europe, yet they were accessible to anyone with only modest funds. Documented prices from 1944 reinforced this reality. A hamburger cost 25 cents, Coca-Cola 5 cents, a slice of pie 15 cents, an ice cream sundae 25 cents, and a full dinner special ranged from 65 to 75 cents. Crucially, the equality of service fundamentally contradicted German social stratification. A factory worker and a bank president might sit on adjacent counter stools, serve the identical meal by the same waitress, paying the same price. As prisoners gained access to American publications, the scale of this reduction became quantifiable and staggering, dwarfing German wartime efforts. American production statistics for 1944 documented figures, such as approximately 7 million tons of sugar, 380 million pounds of chocolate and cocoa products designated for military alone, and over 500 million gallons of ice cream, built upon a 1943 figure of 5 billion bottles of Coca-Cola and 119 billion pounds of milk produced annually. German production same period. Sugar, the dire state of the German home front was reflected in the official rations. sugar derived heavily from beets, chocolate reserved strictly for military priority, and soft drinks, ice cream, and fresh milk production virtually non-existent. These grim figures, published openly in American media, starkly demonstrated that the United States' wartime output already exceeded Germany's peacetime industrial peaks. This disparity became tangible by late 1944, when International Red Cross records confirmed profound reversal. German prisoners of war in America, utilizing their camp wages, were purchasing American products, chocolate bars, instant coffee, and canned goods, to mail home. During their captivity, these German prisoners dispatched approximately 11 million parcels to their homeland, overwhelmingly consisting of food items. The psychological impact on German families, receiving unexpected American abundance from imprisoned relatives while they themselves faced starvation and freedom, served as a devastating and public indictment of Nazi ideology. The implementation of American rationing further illuminated the immense gulf between the two societies. While Americans complained bitterly about a monthly sugar allowance of 2 pounds per person, more than triple German allowance when available, and a weekly meat ration of 28 ounces, they were still maintaining consumption levels Germans considered an impossible luxury. The American meat allowance alone exceeded what the average German received monthly. Office of Price Administration records revealed that, despite these restrictions, Americans still purchased 74 pounds of sugar per capita in 1944, a figure 10 times greater than German consumption. Beyond staples, the prisoners encountered the sheer scale of American consumer culture. They quickly discovered an entire competitive soft drink industry beyond Coca-Cola, observing brands like Pepsi Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, and Orange Crush vying for market share alongside countless regional brands. This vast variety, with multiple companies producing similar products, provided irrefutable proof of a market abundance impossible under the rigid controls of the German economy, underscored by the ubiquitous presence of bottling plants in every major city, utilizing advanced technology for carbonation and distribution. The American manufacturing apparatus, honed by wartime demands, ensured that beverage production, capping, and labeling were standardized and ruthlessly efficient. Single bottling plants possess the capacity to churn out millions of units annually, supported by a distribution network that successfully penetrated every small town, remote gas station, and corner grocery store in the nation. By the conclusion of the war, American soft drink production had soared into the billions of bottles annually, an output equating to dozens of bottles for every American citizen each year. The sheer scale of the single consumer industry's output demonstrably exceeded entire sectors of German consumer production. Spring 1945 brought the final, devastating ideological blow. German prisoners of war interned in the United States watched mandatory newsreels showing American GIs advancing to the Reich, not merely as conquerors, but as distributors of staggering abundance. These POWs witnessed the stark visual contrast of American soldiers handing out chocolate and chewing gum to German children, whose own government could not provide such simple sustenance. The joyful reception of American candy completed the ideological demolition, contrasting a state that promised triumph but delivered starvation with an enemy that carried enough surplus to give away. Furthermore, films of concentration camp liberations captured American troops sharing their limited rations with skeletal survivors, a profound demonstration of humanity toward the victims of the regime the German soldiers had served. Between 1945 and 1946, German POWs returned to a homeland utterly destroyed. The physical evidence of the war's outcome was undeniable. Many prisoners had gained significant weight during their American captivity, while their families, enduring the deprivation of German freedom, had suffered severe weight loss. Medical examinations confirmed that German POWs generally returned healthier than when they were captured, bringing knowledge of American plenty to a land defined by absolute scarcity. This physical disparity, American abundance versus German deprivation, was irrefutable. Many prisoners brought home the last of their final Red Cross packages, hoarded chocolate, coffee, and canned goods, items that instantly became revered family treasures. Fathers returned, offering Hershey bars to children who had entirely forgotten the taste of chocolate. These former prisoners of war, many of whom had consumed unheard-of luxuries like ice cream and Coca-Cola regularly within the confines of the American prison camps, became crucial, if unexpected, advocates for the Marshall Plan. They had witnessed firsthand an unprecedented American abundance, a prosperity rooted in massive production rather than conquest, fundamentally defying the zero-sum mentality of military extraction. Their powerful testimony, asserting that Americans possess capacity and the ethical framework to rebuild former enemies, was instrumental in fostering German acceptance of the massive infusion of American aid. These men grasped a fundamental truth. American power derived not from military force, but from an unparalleled productive capacity. Having observed a society wealthy enough to generate surplus and even waste food while prosecuting a global war. This new mental model, creation over conquest, fundamentally shaped West Germany's subsequent economic philosophy. The rapid ascent known as the German economic miracle of the 1950s was, in part, built upon the empirical knowledge acquired within those American camps. Former PWs absorbed critical lessons regarding efficient American production methods, sophisticated distribution systems, and inherent political stability generated by widespread consumer abundance. They learned that meticulous standardization fostered both quality and efficiency, and that mass production could render former luxuries widely affordable. Crucially, they recognized that industrial democracy inherently possessed a greater capacity to outproduce authoritarian control. These transformative lessons, often delivered through the seemingly benign medium of Coca-Cola and ice cream, ultimately shaped a generation of influential German business and political leaders. The evidence documenting this profound transformation is robust, preserved across military quartermaster records, detailed International Red Cross reports, corporate production archives, particularly those of Coca-Cola, preserved PW correspondence, though censored, and extensive post-war academic studies. Arnold Kramer, the leading historian of German POWs in America, definitively concluded that this experience of food abundance was central to the ideological reorientation of these future leaders. The meticulous research confirmed profound cultural demolition. The casual, overwhelming plenty of the American logistical system achieved what formal re-education programs could not: the irrefutable destruction of the foundational Nazi myths of racial and industrial superiority. The statistical summary of rations between 1943 and 1946 tells a stark, undeniable story of disparity. German prisoners of war received a daily intake of 3,300 to 3,600 calories, supplemented by 4 pounds of sugar monthly, 32 ounces of meat weekly, and a full quart of milk daily. During the summer, ice cream was served regularly, and soft drinks were unlimited at 5 cents each. The contrast of the home front was devastating. German civilian rations during the same period plummeted to a mere 1,200 to 1,500 calories per day. Their allotment of sugar was just 280 grams monthly, and the promised 10.5 ounces of weekly meat was often unattainable. Milk was severely rationed, and ice cream was non-existent, with soft drinks entirely unavailable. These documented disparities, where enemy prisoners ate demonstrably better than the defeated populace, were not wartime propaganda. They were tangible, documented proof of American abundance extending even to defeated foes. This experience with American food culture profoundly influenced the shaping of post-war West Germany. Coca-Cola, returning to West Germany in 1949, quickly transitioned from a beverage to a potent symbol of the burgeoning American alliance and democratic recovery. Throughout German cities, American-modeled ice cream parlors and soda fountains sprang up, while candy bars and chewing gum became immediate, visceral markers of economic revitalization. Crucially, many former prisoners of war leveraged their unique experience, becoming the pioneering importers of American food products. Having personally witnessed the efficiency and appeal of these goods, they understood that these items symbolized far more than simple taste. They represented modernity, democracy, and limitless abundance. This understanding led former POWs to champion the introduction of American-style supermarkets to Germany in the 1950s, recognizing that achieving democratic abundance required entirely new distribution methodologies, mirroring the vastness they had observed in American grocery stores. In various post-war interviews and memoirs, German prisoners of war consistently cited this experience of food abundance as the single most transformative element of their captivity. A former Afrika Korps officer stated in a powerful 1975 interview, one former prisoner confessed, We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could afford to give ice cream to its enemies. That's when we realized we had lost more than a war. We had lost our entire worldview. A decade later, a veteran interviewed for a 1985 documentary reinforced this sentiment, recalling his first taste of the iconic beverage. My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future, sweet, effervescent, entirely unnecessary, and yet available to anyone for a nickel. That single drink contained everything the ideology of Nazi Germany rigorously rejected: abundance, standardization, and democratic joy. These testimonies, collected across decades, confirm that American material abundance achieved what military defeat alone could not: a comprehensive ideological surrender. The men who arrived on U.S. shores as dedicated Nazi warriors departed as witnesses to the palpable reality of democratic prosperity. Historians widely recognize the German prisoner of war experience in America as a remarkably successful program of re-education, relying on material evidence and observation rather than explicit propaganda or instruction. The program succeeded precisely because it allowed the prisoners to observe American society functioning at peak productivity while still treating its enemies with dignity. The crucial element was a food supply, a universal language understood by all, in stark contrast to the extreme deprivation they knew intimately in the Reich. The continuous provision of 3 daily meals, supplemented by canteen purchases, resulted in visible weight gain and undeniable health improvement. Every meal became a tangible lesson in American industrial capacity. Every standardized Coca-Cola demonstrated efficient distribution, and every ice cream sundae proved that such abundance could be inherently democratic. Decades later, the children of these former prisoners grew up hearing fantastic stories of American abundance within the confines of the prison camps, tales that were rapidly validated as West Germany recovered and American consumer products finally flooded the European market. The mythology, the legacy of American industrial plenty, forged paradoxically within the confines of wartime prison camps, fundamentally reshaped generations of German-American relations. Many children of these former prisoners later sought out studies or careers in the United States. They were drawn by their father's incredible, almost mythical accounts of impossible American abundance, only to find that the reality truly matched the tales. Supermarkets overflowing with variety, soda fountains dispensing elaborate sundaes, and candy aisles offering dozens of choices. This multi-generational influence extended far beyond individual lives. West German business culture rapidly absorbed crucial lessons regarding consumer abundance, the standardization of quality, and the dynamism of democratic markets. The subsequent West German economic miracle, often called the Wirtschaftswunder, was not merely a story of manufacturing output, but a deliberate effort to create readily accessible prosperity for ordinary citizens. Today, the evidence of this transformation is ubiquitous. McDonald's operates well over 1,400 restaurants across Germany. Coca-Cola is a fixture of daily life, and ice cream is an ordinary commodity. The transition from post-war scarcity to modern abundance, initiated subtly within those American prison camps, is now complete. Yet, the historical lesson embedded in this process remains potent. Ideological transformation achieved through the demonstration of plenty rather than deprivation, kindness rather than cruelty, and genuine demonstration rather than hollow propaganda. The German prisoners of war who initially doubted the existence of such simple luxuries as ice cream and Coca-Cola in American camps witnessed democracy's ultimate silent weapon. This was a capacity to generate such overwhelming abundance that it could be shared casually, even with enemies. The narrative of German POWS and American food abundance stands as history's most unusual victory, a war won through sheer generosity, an ideology quietly defeated by ice cream, and a worldview shattered by soft drinks. These men experienced profound transformation, deriving not from punishment, but from the visible reality of plenty. They arrived convinced of German superiority and American weakness, but departed with the crucial understanding that American strength stemmed from productive capacity, so vast it could afford to casually dispense resources. A society capable of selling Coca-Cola to its prisoners for 5 cents possessed a power that truly transcended mere military might. The layered spectacle of the American ice cream sundae, piled high with excessive cream, rich syrup, crunchy nuts, crowned by the solitary cherry, became the ultimate, undeniable metaphor for American material power and profound abundance. For the captured German Kriegsgefangene PS, each component alone represented a luxury beyond the rationing dreams of the Reich. Combined, they materialized an impossible luxury, made routine by their captors. The stark reality that enemies could casually order seconds while German children faced profound hunger definitively revealed the totality of the Nazi regime's failure. Former PS often recounted specific, powerful moments of revelation. The sharp, unfamiliar fizz of the first Coca-Cola, the shocking cold sweetness of the first spoonful of ice cream, or the rich, unfamiliar density of a Hershey bar. These purely sensory memories, far exceeding the impact of any political argument, constituted their first true taste of democracy, and it was undeniably sweet. The transformation was profound and ultimately irrevocable. Men who had once marched under the banner of the Third Reich returned home as unlikely apostles of abundance, delivering the revolutionary message that genuine prosperity originated from freedom and productive enterprise, not from violent conquest. America's true strategic advantage was not merely its military might, but its capacity to demonstrate unparalleled generosity, extending even to the simple act of serving ice cream to former enemies. The dishes of ice cream and bottles of Coca-Cola distributed within American prison camps achieved a complete transformation of enemy hearts and minds that professional armies could only attempt. These German prisoners, witnesses to an abundance they could not have imagined, became freedom's most persuasive ambassadors, carrying home the truth that democracy tasted like chocolate and that freedom possessed the effervescence of carbonation. Their testimony underscores a crucial historical lesson, that the greatest victories are often secured not through destruction or hatred, but through tangible demonstration, through the moral power of giving, and through the simple, transformative reality of serving abundance to one's enemies on a hot summer day.